Hello and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Tonight we will be talking about a crisis that touches every one of us. That is the emergency of water in Pakistan. From drying rivers to floods, Pakistan is now in a vicious cycle when we talk about water scarcity as well as the droughts that Pakistan is facing. At this point in time, when we talk about the floods situation in Pakistan, and only in this year, more than 240 lives have been lost to floods, and these are the urban floodings. And when we talk about the figures, Pakistan is 15th most water-stressed countries of the world. And if things do not change, we could run out of usable water by 2035. Of course, these are the concerns that need to be addressed, and we will be talking about different dimensions in today's program. And when we talk about the water resilient infrastructure that is also needed in Pakistan, we will be talking about that as well. But along with the domestic issue that Pakistan is facing as far as water crisis is concerned, water has now become a geopolitical flashpoint. In today's program, we'll be talking about that dimension as well when we talk about the Indus Waters Treaty as it is under stress and what needs to be done in that regard. Tonight, we will be discussing is Pakistan's next big security threat is water, and what needs to be done to address this issue as far as the regional cooperation is concerned. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studio by Dr. IQBAL, who is an environmental lawyer. Welcome to the program. We're also joined in the studios by environmentalist Dr. PERVAIZ AMIR. Welcome to the program. Dr. SARMAD, let me start with you with the stats that are very concerning, that Pakistan stands as the 15th most water-stressed nation in the world by global measures. What does this tells us about Pakistan's issues as far as water crisis is concerned? Do you think that water resilient infrastructure, or rather the lack of infrastructure, is one of the significant issues? And what are 3-4 main points in your opinion in this regard?
Thank you, Maryam. I'll just start with Pakistan being an agriculture country needs water. So one of the prime issues connected to water, if we don't have water to irrigate our lands, we are losing our agriculture. We'll be faced with an enormous challenge of food security in the country, which means that 70 to 80% of our populace would be under the extreme food security challenges, especially the ones that have more dependence or more requirement of food intake. For example, the malnourished ones would be the most at risk in our country. Now, having said that, the issue of fresh water also is something that we need to look into. We are losing volumes of fresh water, and it's just going out into the sea or evaporating. Yes. And if rightful measures are not taken, we are yet to face an extreme or aggravated situation of water crisis. Linked to that is the issue of social cohesion. Social cohesion is basically a parameter of peace or peace building within the communities. And our next disagreements, our next command and control is going to be over the resources, especially the water. So having all this thing clubbed together, we are looking at a national crisis in times to come.
And this is predicting more worsening conditions, yes, not only at the domestic level, yes, but as far as the regional cooperation is concerned as well. I'll be circling back to that point. But Dr. PERVAIZ, when we look at, of course, the figures, like I quoted earlier, the IOM warns Pakistan could reach absolute water scarcity by year 2035. Given that Pakistan is already world's 5th most populous country, what factors, in your opinion, are driving this projection, and is it likely to come sooner than year 2035?
I think so. What we are seeing right now, if you look at the noises which are coming out of Sindh province, I mean, even for this current crop, I mean, there is just not enough water which is available out there. So my own feeling is that 2035, this has been projected for over the last 20 years, you know. I mean, that we were basing it on what would happen to our glaciers, what would happen to temperature, what would happen to precipitation. I think climate change right now is full blown as far as Pakistan is concerned. We are the #1 country according to the German watch. We are #1 in the world, and the most vulnerable country being affected by climate change. I think if you look at IMF, our loans when they were tied up, one of the conditions and one of the recommendations was that 5% of the monies which are available should go towards combating climate change. That is our GDP. So if the GDP growth rate is only about 2.37% or whatever, if you're saying that put 5% of your GDP into climate change, that's a lot of money, and that's the seriousness of the problem which the international community feels. So I think it's going to be priority #1. It's going to be the top of the list. And when you talk about water, you talk about water security is equal to national security. There is no concept of national security if water security is not tied up. I think it is at the forefront. What you saw in May with India, you know, that 4-day conflict which we sort of participated in, the core issue which goes back behind that is water. The core issue will be water, the core issue will be Kashmir, and the core issue will be climate change and how it plays out in Pakistan, which we are already facing the music right now.
Right, right. Of course, these are the core issues. And coming back to the issue of water scarcity, and like you mentioned that we are wasting a lot of water because of the lack of infrastructure in that regard. I want to report I want to quote this report by WWF Pakistan that reports that per capita water availability has plunged significantly for Pakistan from 1947 to 2023. And what historical changes, in your opinion, like population growth, irrigation expansion, or glacial melt, are responsible for or account for this 85% decline in water per person, and how dangerous is this water scarcity?
Water scarcity is a phenomenal issue that we are going to be faced with, and we are still faced with it. You know, the full blown impact that we are seeing right now is because of our behaviors, because of our patterns, because of our individual to collective responsibility or lack of that is playing a havoc on the country. Now, if you look at water conservation measures, we haven't taken any serious water conservation measures across the country over the past couple of decades, but we are thinking on that. The water conservation measures that were taken have not proved to be that substantial or fruitful in the long run. Clubbed with that is our behavior of wasting water, whether it's during domestic purposes or whether it's for agricultural purposes. We're wasting them, we are flooding our farms, our fields by using flood irrigation methodology. We are using our patterns of washing cars 3 times a day, and just imagine how much of that water is being wasted. Now that water is going into the sewerage. Sewerage water can't be treated and can't be reused. And the places where we are trying to model these things is not up to that mark or up to that volume which could actually help us rechannelize that water back into the economy. So all of that clubbed together is a pattern of policy, behavior, actions, pilots, technology, all of that coming together. And I believe that our ministries are trying to play their part, but they're also resource crunched, they're also technically crunched, they also have lack of human resource or trained one, and all that clubbed together with funds. So that thing is playing a very...
Of course, funding remains an important issue, but at the same time, there are gaps in policy implementation as well, Dr. SARMAD. And like Dr. PERVAIZ earlier alluded to, the point of and the significance of water being an issue of national security and national survival. FAO notes Pakistan's water stress is amongst the highest globally. And this makes securing water as a matter of national survival, like we discussed earlier. In your opinion, how should this narrative build an ultimatum for policy making as far as water issues are concerned, and what would national survival look like if these urban centers ran out of drinking water? Because we are discussing, and the figures are telling us that we are going to be running out of usable water by year 2035, and that is not too late, just a decade.
No, the challenge is 2035 has just come up now. We've been hearing that 2025 to 2030 would be a period when Pakistan would be severely hit with a lot of challenges, including the water scarcity challenge. Now, having said that, the policy mindset is a one-shoe-fits-all kind of a policy mindset. But over the past couple of years, we have seen that shift happen. So now we are no more a one-shoe-fits-all policy mindset. We are transitioning, transferring, we are moving towards more consolidated, more integrated policy making paradigm. However, the biggest challenge that we face is with regards to our behaviors and our technology. We don't have those. Our behaviors remain the same as 30 years ago, probably, or 40 years ago, or even worsened from that. Our technology remains obsolete. We haven't brought in new technology. We haven't learned from countries who have irrigated their deserts and converted them into green zones. We haven't learned the water recycling technologies which are being applied across the globe in different well-developed countries. We haven't actually looked at the academic research when it comes to policy framing, policy articulation, clubbed with strategies, moving into an operational plan backed by budget. So all of these clubbed together is creating a bit of a chaotic situation right now for us.
Right, that is creating indeed a bit of chaotic situation, rather a huge chaotic situation and concern for Pakistan's survival as far as water is concerned. But like we discussed about the financial aspect of it, and Dr. SARMAD alluded to the significance of our old habits that we had 30 years ago. We are still into those habits of water wastage. And when we look at different stats, IMF data cited in recent analyses show Pakistan's total water demand exceeds its supply. What sectors, in your opinion, like irrigation, industry, urban use, contribute to this gap, and what efficient measures are needed realistically to close such a massive gap, which is around 30%?
I think the main issue which comes up is we have a lot of studies on the surface water, on the supply side. The excellent studies, Pakistan has been onto it from 1960 onwards. We don't have one study. I'm one of the authors. There's another study, I think, which was fairly loose about 20 years ago. We really don't have a good handle on the demand side. We've just not invested in that. We know, broadly speaking, that 90% of water goes into agriculture. The other 2.5% goes into drinking, then 2.5% goes into industry and some of these other areas and sanitation, and then some of the water is left out for the environmental flows. That's the broad gauge, but we really don't have a real handle. So one area which needs to be really strengthened is to look at the demand side much more rigorously, much more academically. And water, when you talk water, it is basically a time and space problem. It's where do you want to talk about? You don't say for Pakistan. I mean, that's not the right word, you know. Where will water be scarce? Which areas will water be? If I'm living on the Indus or somewhere in that area, water is not scarce. When will water be scarce? That's the other question. 80% of water is generated during these 2.5 months, the summer months. 20% is generated during winter. So unless and until you have a mechanism by which 80% of this water is transferred to the remaining part of the year, there is no way, no matter what you do. The storages on water are basically twofold. Either you store the water in some dams or barrages or these areas, that's your surface water. The other storage you do is underground, which is possible but very expensive when you sort of take out that water. So it's the policy papers are there. The best analysis in the world, in my opinion, is there. The decision-making process and the decision-making competence is simply not there. Our ministries are not apt to making decisions based on that highly analytical data. Harvard University participates, World Bank participates, and we've been into these dozen studies, which we know exactly what to do. We were told what to do in 1960 by Peter Lefnick, the Indus Basin study. We were told at that time what should Pakistan do to avert this situation. We took partial steps. We took clause, we took part of that Indus Basin Treaty, which is in abeyance right now. It has its own problems. We took some steps. The critical steps still remain, and until and unless Pakistan goes back to that 1960s, that framework which was given at that time, the Indus Basin, I don't think there's much hope. Unless you put up some mechanism by which this water, which is for these 2.5 months, unless you put up a way by which you can transfer this water to the other sectors.
Right, and it's not only about the storage of water. Dr. Pervaiz, when we look at water usage for irrigation, Pakistan uses almost 90% of its water for irrigation purposes, which is far above the global levels. And what is needed in your opinion as far as the efficient irrigation systems or mechanisms are concerned to address this issue?
I think what you do is, first of all, the cropping pattern. That's the first thing. This water use of 90% of water we're talking about, that's based on a designed cropping pattern. You want to grow rice in deserts. You want to grow rice in those districts in which rice was never grown. You want to put below sukkar, you want to put the rice, and you want to have 2,000 mills of sugar cane. That's the political economy part of it. You don't have a clear macro framework that what does Pakistan want, what is the way forward for Pakistan. It is just haphazard, the political economy works. We used to be the best in cotton at one time. We are out of cotton. Specific to your question, I think water conservation, there are many...
Because farmers are also concentrated on just 4 crops, because there are incentives in those crops.
I think that's a misnomer. There were incentives. If you look at wheat, the farmer is tortured the most. I think the current situation is it's the most tortured actor in the whole system, Same goes for cotton. All right, sugarcane, yes, there's some protection in sugarcane for the reasons I've alluded earlier. The main areas which you need to focus on, you go for water conservation. It was earlier stated by Dr. Saeed that flood irrigation, we can easily do 2 things. It doesn't take anything. One is furrow irrigation. You put water through furrows. You save 30% right there and then. You make that as a condition for farming. Anybody wants to farm, we are not going to allow him to farm on flood irrigation. That's the simple one thing you can do. And this is for the irrigated areas.
And do we need some kind of awareness for the farmers?
The farmers are aware. You need the policy push. Like you're doing for electricity, you need the policy push which focuses on that. Secondly, you don't waste water by letting it move on the surface. This rain which is coming right now, it's going to start raining outside. You want to put up dug wells, you want to put up technologies by which this water goes underground. Our main resource, we have 50 million acre feet of water underground, right?
Because now we are facing urban flooding, and after a while we will be in a drought-like situation.
So that water can easily be saved over there, Go for conservation technologies like sprinkler irrigation, go for drip irrigation. Countries like Jordan, these are they mastermind this, They can do agriculture 10 times better than us with 30% of the water which Pakistan utilizes. So this is not magic. China is showing the way. It's not magic. The technology is very well known. We just have to get people out of the traditional mode and get them into these water conservation approaches. Otherwise, look, the total water has not changed much. It might change with this IBT in abeyance. We started with 150 million acre feet of water back in 1947. Then it came down to 145. I don't know where that 5 million acre feet of water went. Now we are up to 140 to 143 million acre feet. The thing which is happening is the population, the per capita, the words, this is a nonsense. In 2018, I told the Supreme Court of Pakistan, I said, sir, the justices, this is not an issue of the total volume of water. It is an issue of when you keep on dividing that by the lower number of population, the per capita will keep on going down. That also goes for agriculture. How are you going to spread them amongst those crops? We don't want to only produce those 4 crops which you mentioned. We want to, 60% of our GDP is generated not by crops, it is generated from livestock. The main economy is livestock. So it's a macro model which you look at where do you want to use this water which is going to become scarce, more and more scarce. If you want to continue doing what you're doing, you are the ones who are going to face that music. If you want to make the amendments right now, change your cropping patterns, change the way you're going to use this water, I think Pakistan has a hope and Pakistan has some salvation there.
Of course, these are the domestic issues that Pakistan needs to address. But at the same time, Dr. Sarmad, of course, water has now become a geopolitical flashpoint as well, and it's kind of a time bomb as far as Indus Waters Treaty is concerned, because we know that almost and over 80% of Pakistan's agricultural farms and hydropower projects rely on Indus water systems. If India were to withhold or redirect its water, in such a scenario, it could cut around 35% of Pakistan's water availability in key seasons. How catastrophic would it be for our agriculture, for our economy, and what strategic measures are needed by Pakistan to address this issue?
You know, when it comes to Indus Water Treaty, we have a lot of leeway, but at the same time, our neighbor does have a lot of leeway too. The subject of water conservation or water management, I would say, or water storage is something not explicitly spelt out in the Indus Water Treaty. It has been in the discourse for some time, and all these agreements have been made in the conversations that have happened between the commissions on both sides or members on both sides. But when it comes to the impact of climate change and depleting water, can we really say that the treaty would stand when millions of people would be affected on both sides of the border because of lack of water? If India was to store 35% of water and Pakistan was to receive 35% less, definitely Pakistan's impact is more. Why? Because a lot of, or 35% of the agriculture is going to go down, I would say, in layman's term. Now, when 35% goes down, do we have any measures or do we have any resilience agenda which we are promoting to actually cover for that period or cover for that time or cover for that shortage, which maintains our agriculture, which maintains our farmlands, which maintains all the life and connected with that water? I don't know. I haven't seen it. I'm not sure if Dr. Saab has seen such plans or such conversations happening.
But at the same time, Dr. Samad, we know that Indus Waters Treaty was a model for other water treaties of the world, and with India holding this treaty in abeyance, it is raising another concern, or do you think this is going to be another water wars in the region?
You know, as I said, water is going to be one of the...
Because at this point in time, even India does not have that kind of infrastructure or the geography to withhold that amount of water. And at this point in time, we also know that there is flooding in Indus areas as well because of the heavy rainfalls.
You know, when it comes to infrastructure or holding water, there are a lot of techniques and ways which could be used to at least harness water for some time being, slow down the flow of that water towards Pakistan. But the second thing is, as I said, one shoe fits all policy doesn't apply anymore. The Indus Treaty, whether it was a model at that time, needs to be relooked in the current paradigm of climate impacts. How are we actually saving, or how are we actually securing interests of both parties by reviewing the Indus Water Treaty? Now, unilaterally, anyone can hold that treaty in abeyance, and I believe our neighbor is doing that. But the impact, we are the ones who are going to bear the impact. So what plans do we have in place, apart from the wars that we are looking at? But what plans do we have in place to actually manage that situation? Now, having said that, future wars are going to be on resources, and it has been articulated probably 2 to 3 decades ago that the upcoming or the Third World War is going to be on resources. Now, water is one of the precious resources, and if that abeyance continues to happen or that deviation continues to happen, the wars are imminent. We don't know what the time frame would be, but
Right,
They are
right.
imminent.
But Dr. Samad, like you earlier mentioned that one of the countries can unilaterally withhold, or rather it has withheld water. But as per Indus Waters Treaty, India cannot unilaterally do that, and that we witnessed in Permanent Court of Arbitration's June 2025 ruling as well. So, Dr. Pervaiz, in your opinion, what needs to be done by Pakistan strategically at this point in time to not only conserve our resources and but also take this matter to the regional countries, especially the neighboring countries like China, for cooperation in these resources?
Let me point out 3-4 things, Maria. First of all, India does not control the waters. It's in the mid-region. The waters which are generated are basically generated out of China, and China is fairly vocal on that rights and entitlements of countries with the lower riparians must be protected. The historical rights must be protected. So I think we're clear on that. You mentioned the World Bank, the arbitration decision, not the World Bank, but the Court of Arbitration. The World Bank has also come out very clearly that, look here, we are there to, our good offices are available. It is an existential threat for Pakistan. Pakistan, under no circumstances whatsoever, will be able to go along with any one-sided abeyance of this treaty. Let me give you the reason. We are the only country in the world which gave 3 rivers. No country in the world gives out 3 rivers.
And even they are building infrastructures on that.
No, there they have the right. On those 3, they have the right. They are building 5,000 dams. They have 5,000 dams. They're building 500 dams currently. That is the level of engagement India has. The way they want to move forward is by diverting waters which are on the Ravi, on Satluj, Chenab areas. They want to divert those water to Punjab and to Haryana. They have a conflict of their own. There is a major conflict over there. They think they can divert that. In my humble opinion, it takes them about 25 to 30 years to do that. Initially, they might be able to make Pakistan will simply not allow it. The waters are generated through Kashmir. Kashmir is the hotbed. Everybody recognizes it, including Mr. Trump and the others. We are very clear. Any diversion which is created on our waters, Pakistan simply will not be able to tolerate. Even if it wants to, it cannot tolerate it. The Indus Basin Treaty was basically a surface water treaty. We are not only being hurt by the surface water. At that time, there was no word called climate change. It has a new word. There was no word called environmental flows. It is a new word. There was no engagement of underground water. Lot of our areas being totally devastated because there is no recharge in those underground areas. You take Vihadi, you take Multan areas, these areas. So, a couple of years back, we said that, okay, let's sit on the table. These are 3 new areas. Let's listen to you. India said simply, no. There is a strong view in Pakistan that the treaty is sacrosanct. We should not touch it. I am of the view that Pakistan should give it a breathing space of 5 to 10 years. India should get out of this abeyance business. It cannot do it legally anyway. If it does, you saw what happened in May. That situation will come up very quickly, Sit together, talk sense. These 3 points which I'm making, India might have some grievances. We can talk. We can talk in terms of how can we move forward within this water resources.
Right.
But there is not going to be any setting aside the treaty. There can be 1 or 2 clauses added to that current thing that is between the good offices of World Bank, Pakistan and India. They don't want to do it. The United States has already said that they're willing to come and they're willing to help. They're willing to help in Kashmir. We are just waiting and watching and seeing how India responds. It has its own political problems.
Right, but I want to interject and I want your take on the point you made earlier that India does not have the kind of infrastructure in coming 25
Currently it doesn't have.
In next 2 decades or so to divert water. But at the same time, my concern and my question is that could India, do you think, weaponize water by altering the timing or triggering floods in Pakistan during the dry seasons?
It could, not in the dry season, even right now, See, look, any country, let's not talk India only, any country, when the water comes, you store that water. Any water which is excess, the maximum filling capacity of any dam or infrastructure, you have to release that water. What India does, it strategically plays it. Whenever there are main rainfalls, they try to not announce to Pakistan. The treaty is very clear that either country, before it releases any major water volumes, it has to inform the other country.
Yes,
Normally
but India has not been doing so for quite some time now.
But the science is very clear. I don't even need India to tell me that. That information I don't need. These satellites are so much well organized right now. The weather data is so well organized. Pakistan should have that capacity itself. We should know beforehand if there's going to be so much rain in India, what's going to have. This is the amount they're going to be able to store. This is the amount which they're going to let loose. So even if India does that, the science part has to come in and it has to play its role. Beyond that, India must realize very clearly that the moment it starts doing this, it's not only doing this by the way on the Indus, it is also making that same noise on Brahmaputra with Bangladesh.
Yes.
It is opening up this conflict with everybody. It's like saying that either you play it my way or you don't play it at all. Pakistan will not play its way. We have already given, as I said, 3 rivers. All right, tomorrow they don't want it. What I do is I take out those, any infrastructure, Bhakra, any infrastructure which is on those 3 rivers. They were my rivers to start with. We entered that treaty just for one reason, is that this is a treaty for all times to come. That's the understanding which was given to us. If one party says, I don't like it, fine, don't like it. Tomorrow we take out all those 3 rivers. Simple as that.
Right, and Dr. Samad, with all this context in mind, do you think that water wars in South Asia are going to be a myth, or this is going to be a reality in coming time and we should be actually concerned about that? And what needs to be done to address those concerns?
As far as the word myth is concerned, it's out of the window. It's no more a myth. It's going to be a reality.
What happened in May? Was that a myth?
But the reality, it's going to be a stark reality when it comes to actually a war being fought over water. How many lives are going to be at stake with that? The hotbed is one thing, but down the stream or lower riparian is going to be the one worstly affected. What plans do we have to manage that? That is my own question that I put to all the decision makers. What is our backup plan in case certain things happen?
Right, right. And what is the backup plan? Because like you mentioned earlier that not only with Pakistan, but India is doing so with Nepal as well. And if China plans to do so in future with India being the upper riparian country, then this water wars in South Asia or in the region is going to be a reality, and that is going to be affecting millions, rather billions of people in the region. And how do you think, what needs to be done to address this geopolitical, rather emerging geopolitical reality or threat?
I think first is the internal, what Pakistan needs to do. I think that's more important, that's on which we have some control. First of all, apart from the Indian side on Indus Basin Treaty, we have Kabul River. 16% of the flows are my flows which are generated within Pakistan, that comes from Kabul River into the Indus system. If we do not commit to those waters, India will make sure that Afghanistan commits. It's already financing some infrastructure up there. You leave the situation alone for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Tomorrow, Afghanistan, when it stops the water, it will say that, look, Pakistan didn't do anything. India's main, I've been in at least a dozen meetings internationally with the Indians and others. One point which they make again and again is that, look, we are a poor country with a population of 1.2 billion people. Pakistan is a country which wastes its water. It is letting this water flow into the sea, as Dr. Samad was saying earlier. It doesn't utilize that water. I need that water for my economic development. I need that water for my very large poor population. I don't have an answer to that. I mean, that is a very legitimate point. We have failed partly because of India intervening into the Pakistani water infrastructure
Briefly, since we are concluding the program, what water reforms as far as water diplomacy is concerned are needed urgently at this point in time?
I think you use the good offices of the World Bank and you use the offices of the United States. They are the ones who stepped in and said that stop this war. It would have come to some logical conclusion, no matter how bad that conclusion would have been. That, okay, you guys promised, let's sit together. We are not walking out of this treaty. That we are very clear as a national policy. National water security is our national security. That's one thing. Secondly, if there is some logical response which India wants, we are willing to sit and we are willing to put up a time frame, a 5 to 10 year moratorium period. Let the waters flow as they are. We talk within that 5 to 10 periods. If they say no, that we don't even like this, then I mean the diplomacy part is out. Then there is really no diplomacy on it. If God forbid that situation hopefully will not rise, I think they are coming to senses. India is very quickly coming to senses. That sense must prevail. There are gentlemen over there. They are not all Modis. There are people who, with a lot of brains in India, have a lot of professional respect for them. I think they will come out and chalk a course in which both parties sit together and we find a solution to that. Water is going to become scarce. Maybe India doesn't even have to follow a lot of its own cropping patterns. They are already changing in the Punjab. Maybe we need to do some of that over here. Storage, storage, storage. Store the waters which you have. God even is unhappy with our situation. 2.5 months, the bounty is full-fledged. Store that water. Store it in the Swan. You have a 5 times capacity over what you have over there. The waters which are coming on Kabul, store them somewhere. Divert your waters into the Tharparkar, divert your waters into Satluj. Now India is going to release some additional waters on Satluj. We are very clear on that. Once it does, where does that water go? All of our people are in Sindh or Kotri, they are watching and seeing this water flowing down to the sea. That is not policy, that is not diplomacy. Look at your external conflicts, look at your internal conflicts. I think the way forward is going to be talk on the table.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. PERVAIZ AMIR, for your valuable input and for joining us in today's discussion. Thank you very much, Dr. SARMAD IQBAL, for your valuable input and for joining us in today's discussion. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Yeah, Allah Hafiz.